Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health. Berkeley College. Education prepares us to reach our dreams. Be inspired. Valley Bank. ADP, a comprehensive provider of human resources technology and services. The Northward Center. The Turl Fund, supporting right from the start NJ. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, New Jersey Resources. And by Delta Dental of New Jersey. Everyone deserves a healthy smile. Promotional support provided by NJ Advance Media and by Insider NJ.
I'm Steve Adubato. This is State of Affairs coming to you from the Agnes Varus NJTV studio in Newark. Our honor to once again be joined by Carlos Rodriguez, President and CEO of the Community Food Bank of New Jersey. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to be here.
Some numbers we were talking about before we got on the air. 900,000 people in the state food insecure. Break it down.
Break it down. It's stubbornly over 10% of the population for almost as many years. And even, the interesting backdrop is that we have a record unemployment rate. So it just goes to show that the neighbor in need today is many times someone who actually has work income, but is having a hard time making ends meet.
Carlos, as we put up the website underneath your name, because we've been being involved in public awareness with your organization for a while, we want to let folks know about the Community Food Bank because your work is so important, but tell folks exactly what you do.
Well, what we do is fuel success by making sure all of our neighbors have the food that they need for that. And so whether you're a child looking to learn or develop and grow into a young adult, or whether you're a parent going to work or a senior trying to stay active and healthy, that's what food is. Food is the cornerstone of what success can be for an individual.
You know, the numbers game can be numbing, if you will. I often say numbers can be numbing if you have too many of them around. Like, what does that mean? Put that in context. 1 in 7 children in the state of New Jersey is this food insecure term versus going hungry. Break that down for us.
That means at any given point throughout the year, they don't know whether they can put the next meal on the table.
These are children.
These are children. These are children in families. These are going to school on an empty stomach, going home not knowing whether there's going to be a meal after they try to get their homework done, or before they get their homework done in some cases. So that's the reality of hunger in our community.
People, I don't like to personalize this, but for those of us who have kids, right, and they're so fortunate, we are so fortunate, that they have food. More food sometimes than they want or need, right?
That's exactly right.
We are now talking about children who don't have food. Break it down, and by the way, we've been very much involved with some of our healthcare colleagues and partners talking about, quote unquote, social determinants of health. Going hungry has a lot to do with children and others getting sick.
Food is a social determinant of health. It is the cornerstone for what your day is going to look like, how you're going to develop as a child, how productive you're going to be, how you're going to look for that next success in life.
How about your brain works or doesn't work during school?
It's even more so than that. Not focusing and not having the fuel you need to learn and develop is one, but being a parent and not being able to feed your child actually causes you to go into shock. And there's actually been studies that prove that there are psychological impacts when you cannot meet and you, in fact, are struggling to make basic needs happen for yourself and for your family.
Carlos, we're going into the new year. It's 2020. It'll be seen after. We're taping in November. It's over the holidays. We should do this. Number one, even though it will be seen after the holidays, 25,000 turkeys are distributed by your organization around Thanksgiving?
Around Thanksgiving and into the rest of the holiday season. 25,000 turkeys and other birds, because
right.
Sometimes we get roasters. That's to make ends meet, and because some families prefer that. And it's something that we, yes, distribute during the holidays, but it's something that we plan for year-round, just the way we have to address the need of hunger year-round.
Is the problem of hunger worse in the colder months?
There is more anxiety and costs associated with winter and the holiday season. So more anxiety because if you're having a hard time putting a meal on the table throughout the year, making a special meal, as is so important in our culture for Thanksgiving, there's even more anxiety around that. And then, of course, you have things like heating and fuel costs and other expenses that might add on.
You know, we put up the website, and we're not in the business of public broadcasting, of advocating, if you will, but we're informing so that you can choose to be helpful or not. When we put up your website, what could people do if they wanted to actually be helpful?
Well, the first thing is exactly that. Visit our website, learn how you can volunteer your time, your voice, your treasure. Every dollar at the Community Food Bank of New Jersey supports up to 3 meals. And so we can leverage donations, we can leverage purchasing power, and we can make sure that that food goes to every corner of New Jersey where it's needed, from the northern border of Sussex and Bergen County to the lighthouse in Cape May.
You know, we've had conversations with some of our higher ed colleagues at Berkeley College, at Seton Hall University, at other places, where they talk a lot about, and by the way, it could be any university or college, any place in the region, the issue of food insecurity on the part of students. How is your organization dealing with that? And by the way, whose responsibility is that, particularly for students who barely can afford to be in college, much less live there, plus the books and other expenses? Food a big issue.
Well, I'll start by saying that hunger is a societal problem, and all sectors need to come together to make sure that there's an end to it. And it's a problem that can be solved. The problem of hunger in our community is not one of lack of food.
Why do you say it can be solved?
Because it's not lack of food that's missing, it's lack of access to food. And so when you think about the disparity, as you just described it for college students, you're having a hard time making the finances work, and here you are trying to create success for yourself. You're limited in your ability to do that if you're struggling to put food on the table, to nourish yourself, to be able to learn and to be able to be productive.
But how is it a societal issue? Meaning, are you arguing that there are public policies? I kept thinking, are there public policies that could be created that would be helpful in this regard?
I think public policy is one dimension. I think making sure that the distribution of food is available and affordable is another aspect of it. And then making sure that we understand the role of charity. And our role is, yes, make sure that we provide food for the immediate need, but let's also lean in and figure out what's that underlying cause and see if we can address it.
Carlos Rodriguez is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Community Food Bank of New Jersey. We're proud to be one of your media partners, if you will, trying to get the message out so that people can try to make a difference. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Steve.
Well done.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Adubato. This is the State of Affairs. This is the NJTV studio in beautiful Brick City, Newark, New Jersey, the Agnes Varus NJTV studio. We'll be right back right after this.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Hi, Steve Adubato here in Atlantic City at the 166th New Jersey Education Association Convention. We are talking to educators, leaders of the NJEA, all sorts of national folks who talk about education as well. Once again, we're joined by Marie Blistan, President of the New Jersey Education Association. Good to see you.
Good, thank you, Steve.
Did you wear blue because you heard I was wearing this tie?
I think I did. I
blue the
think I
color
had
of the day?
mental telepathy with
By the
you.
way, your vice president's wearing blue as well.
I saw that, yes. We're all on the same
I love
page.
it.
Good to know.
By the way, you could tell that we're live here in Atlantic City because you see the activity going on. The convention is just kicking off early in the morning. Marie, first of all, put this in context for folks, because for those of us who have a fourth grader who's like, Dad, I have the 2 days off.
Yeah.
Well, those 2 days off, tell folks what goes on here.
Well, they're not 2 days off for our educators in this state, that's for sure. We have 229 different workshops for our educators. We have 200,000 members, Steve, as you know, in our great public schools, and they have the availability to come here, participate in those workshops in areas of their expertise, to grow their own professional learning, and again, to make content specific and important and relevant for our students in their lives.
You know what's interesting, as you're listening to Marie, we're going to be interviewing one of the main speakers here, Dr. Cornel West. internationally recognized, talks about race, social justice, and its connection to education. Your view of this. Why is social justice a big theme at this convention?
Well, it's a platform that my two colleagues, Sean Spiller and Steve Beatty, and I ran on in this great state.
Your president and your secretary
Vice President
treasurer.
and Secretary Treasurer.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see that the theme here says that for student success, we need education justice, we need social justice, and we need to do it by standing together. And that is a theme that we've had the past 2 years. We're going to continue it this year and definitely next year and into the future. So to have Dr. Cornell West here.
That's a big deal.
Oh, it's a huge deal. Our two speakers yesterday, by the way, were two students in college, Priya and Winona, who started in high school from Princeton High School.
And they wrote a wonderful book. We have the book over there. Tell me who you are.
Yes, tell me who you are.
And they went around the country. Tell everyone what they did.
They went around the country. They went to all 50 states as soon as they graduated high school, took a year off before they went to college.
Oh, by the way, they went to some small schools. It was at Harvard and Princeton.
Yeah,
yes. I'm a Rutgers guy, so I'm not impressed.
Yes.
But go ahead.
Well, listen, these two girls, they're impressive.
And they talked about race.
They did, and racial justice, and our ability to be cognizant of where we are today and to want to grow our consciousness about it, to be specific, intentional about critiquing what the status quo is, and then to use our talents and abilities to change and make the movement in this country, to make ourselves a better place.
If you're just joining us, we're at the New Jersey Education Association Convention here at the Convention Center in Atlantic City. 166 years they've been doing it. We're here with the president of the NJEA, Marie Blistan. Let me ask you this. We go from these big picture issues of social justice, race, its connection to education, to a meat and potatoes issue you and I discussed on the radio recently. I was hosting over at AM 970, and you were good enough to get up real early and join us. And you talked about standardized testing.
Yes.
For folks who care about this thing called the PARCC test.
Yes.
P-A-R-C-C.
Yes.
Is it done? Is it dead?
Well, we're still talking about standardized testing and its proper use with our students in education. And I always start where we should start. What is the role of education? A role of education is to enable our students to become productive citizens in this great country of ours. Let's start from there and let's work backwards on what it is that they need. Testing has its role, just as standards do. And I'm a big supporter of standards in our state and implementing those standards. But when we look at standards, we must look at what the education is, what the curriculum is. What we know about testing is it has its place. It gives us a snapshot. It helps guide us as we move along, but there are different types of testing. And the most formative, the most important testing for me as a classroom teacher was always
Go back, hold on.
Yeah.
Go back and let people know, before you became the president, you were in the classroom for a couple of years at least.
Yeah, more than 30 years. I taught kindergarten through 12th grade over those many years, regular education, as well as students who receive special education.
Good, go back to, that's great background, context. Go back to this connection to testing.
Well, as a classroom teacher, I was constantly assessing my students' learning while I was teaching a lesson. I'm trained to do that. I'm an expert in that, so that I would know, even as I was delivering a lesson, whether I was meeting their needs, whether I was capturing their attention, connecting with their background knowledge, so that they could in fact get the concept, or did I need to readjust constantly? That's assessing. I also used formative assessments, which are the classroom test and the district test that we would use.
But Marie, you're not saying you don't believe in standardized testing at all.
No, absolutely not.
Because there's going to be something after PARCC.
It has its place. But whether we have the overemphasis that this state during prior years put into place, Steve, we right now are spending 65 hours of our students' attention doing standardized testing.
Put that in context. What does that mean?
Well, that equates to over 80 45-minute periods of instruction that our students could be doing instruction in the arts, in music, in art education, in science, in social studies. There are so many other things that we use. We are not making robots of our students. Our students are more than a test score. You know, we are in agreement with our other stakeholders. I just saw a paper recently by the School Boards Association. They've come together and produced a summary paper.
And you don't always agree on things.
You know, more times than not that we do.
But the point is you have different agendas, but on this,
No, you know what? Our agenda is the same. Our agenda is to provide the best quality public education that we can for our students. And when I look at the school board's recent summary on social emotional needs of our students, and the fact that they, in fact, have a sentence in their paper that our students are more than a test score, that's what I said in a recent op-ed.
So you're in sync on this?
We are, absolutely. We want what's best for our students, and we want a full-rounded, quality public education. We are not here to produce students who can only take tests. And I will add this, Steve, that the colleges themselves are no longer relying on standardized test scores for entrance. They are looking at what we know works. They're looking at a student's full profile, what their academic courses were, how they did, and what else they did in high school.
You've been listening to and watching Marie Blistan, who is the president of the NJEA. We're here at the NJEA Convention. I should have said this up front. The New Jersey Education Association is a longtime underwriter. I should disclose that, and long-time underwriter of what we do at the Caucus Educational Corporation and of our colleagues and partners at NJTV. I want to thank you, Marie.
No, thank you, Steve.
It's
We
good to be here.
appreciate it. We love being here. We're excited to be here. And again, our educators, we're #1 in the United States, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Best
By the way,
quality public schools.
who was it again?
Education Weekly.
I knew you'd know that.
Yeah.
They said #1.
They were said #1. We were #2 for a while. We were very proud of it, but we said we were not going to stop until we got to be
Isn't
#1.
it great? New Jersey
and we're
is,
going to stay there.
New Jersey's #1 in something other than
Yes.
property taxes,
Yes.
auto insurance
Yes.
rates. We're #1.
Well, that's why people want to move here, by the way. They know that they have a quality public education system.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, Steve.
Done. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be back right after this, promise.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are honored to be joined by our good friend Staci Berger, who is president and CEO of the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey. Good to see you, Staci.
Thanks for having me.
As you put up your website, tell folks who you are and what you do and why it matters.
Sure. We're the statewide association of nonprofit community development organizations that work to make sure everyone has a safe, decent, affordable place to call home in our great communities around New Jersey.
See, I could read that on the website. Now, break that down. Give us a concrete example of who you would be helping and what they would be struggling
Sure. So
with.
we support our member organizations like the folks here in Newark who are working in neighborhoods across the city, Ironbound Community Corporation, La Casa de Don Pedro, Habitat for Humanity, chapters all around the state. We provide technical assistance, training, advocacy, and education and outreach on the behalf of our member organizations.
Big picture.
Sure.
I'm sorry, big picture. Sorry for interrupting. How unaffordable is housing in this state?
So-
And compare it to other states. if you
Sure.
could.
So we rank 6th as the least most affordable place to rent an apartment in the country.
The most expensive.
Most expensive. So least affordable, most expensive
Yep.
place to rent an apartment here in the Garden State, all across the country.
Why?
Well, one, we don't have enough places that people can afford to call home. And second, we really have a wage problem where people are not earning enough to keep up with the housing costs. And unlike most of the other states in the country, we still suffer from the foreclosure crisis. So where many of my colleagues at other state associations around the country can say they see the foreclosure crisis in their rearview mirror, we still have people who were formerly homeowners who are now in the rental market because they can't stay in their home, and then we have foreclosed properties that are sitting vacant and abandoned. So we are looking forward to some of the policies that the Murphy administration has put into place and adopted some legislation.
Such as, name one.
Pardon?
Name one of the things that the Murphy administration is doing in this regard that you believe and your colleagues believe is being helpful.
Well, for starters, this governor is the first governor in a decade to fully fund the state's Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Yeah, okay, what is the state's affordable
Housing Trust Fund?
What is it?
It is a pool of dedicated resources that every time somebody buys or sells a house in the state of New Jersey, a portion of that realty transfer fee goes into that fund and helps offset the cost of building affordable homes. So nonprofits and some for-profit developers can access those resources for investment in the developments that people can live in.
The Governor Murphy administration put the money that was supposed to be put in there for the first time in
a decade. Governor Corzine started to draw from that funding and use it to backfill the budget, but Governor Christie really raised it to an art form and drew from all kinds of dedicated funding sources to pay for his budgets. And so this is really a restoration of the trust fund's intent and purpose. He also created an Office of Homelessness Prevention, which we believe will help people, prevent becoming homeless. And he changed a rule that makes it easier for people to prove that they're homeless and that they need resources. So we're turning the page on some of the really bad practices. Also, Governor Christie did literally nothing about the foreclosure crisis, not a thing. And this governor has made some moves to help with that by, I believe there were 9 bills that were signed in Atlantic City about 6 months ago that had been in the legislature for a long time, including providing resources for housing counseling, which is super important. If people are facing foreclosure, they often wait to get help, and that is not the right move. They need to get to a housing counselor to check out their options, find out what resources are available, and see what can be done to keep their family and themselves in their home.
Staci, let's break this down a little bit, less on a political or policy end, but more on a human, personal level.
Sure.
When a family has a very difficult time affording the housing they have or the housing they need, what kind of impact does it have on a family?
It actually affects the health of everybody living in that family.
Is this, excuse me for interrupting, a social determinant
It is a social
of health?
Yes, 60% of your health actually comes from your environment. So housing, income, community factors are actually a bigger driver in a lot of instances than the actual biology or the healthcare that you see.
So housing and health,
they are intertwined.
as Governor Crane never said, not perfect together.
Governor Kane did not say housing and health were perfect together, but they are. We like to say that housing is healthcare.
Housing is?
Healthcare.
Break it down.
For example, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation recently did a study that found that folks in Trenton live 14 years less than folks 7 miles away in the township of Princeton. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you're living in a community that has all kinds of amenities, is walkable, has cleaner air, has better environment, better environment in general, that the quality and longevity of your life is going to be better.
Wow.
And so those numbers are pretty staggering. What your zip code is shouldn't determine the quality of your life. Every zip code should be a place that people can thrive. And that's really what our members are doing, making sure that people have safe, affordable homes, access to quality jobs at living wages, opportunities for education and childcare.
You know, Staci, you and I have known each other for more than a couple of years.
Just a few.
And we've talked about a whole range of issues. Mm-hmm. But whoever you're affiliated with, whatever you're doing, it always struck me, and it strikes me now, that your concern, your interest, your passion for those who are struggling and those who need that helping hand has been pretty consistent. Where does that come from?
It comes from how I grew up and how I was raised. I was saying before we started taping, my grandfather was a World War II veteran, and he always said, paying taxes was the most patriotic thing he could do. And I think that, being part of the fabric of our community and being involved in society and paying our fair share is really an important part of being a good citizen. Is
that part of the reason why, when I asked you before we got on the air, if you were supportive of Governor Murphy's call to raise taxes on the first dollar over $1 million for people in the state of New Jersey? There's a certain tax rate right now. He wants to raise it. You said, yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. But what would that have to do with housing-related issues? Yeah.
Sure. Well, for starters, it would help bring more revenue into the budget and make sure that we can balance the budget without having to have these raids or redirection of resources. We know that when the state has the kind of resources that it can spend on its people, we all do better. I mean, Senator Wellstone used to say, right, we all do better when we all do better.
Wellstone, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what this comes down to, is the state of New Jersey, for the last 10 or 15 or even 20 years, has really been starved for the ability to invest in our people and our infrastructure.
Let me play a little devil's advocate.
No.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. There are a fair number of friends of mine who are older than you and that have worked for a while and are paying taxes in the state. And they'll say, this is it. And you've heard this, your friends say the same thing, some of them. I'm getting out of here. I don't want to pay New Jersey income taxes. I'm going to Florida, no income tax there. Do you ever worry that the cost of living in the state, for those who are more comfortable than the folks you're talking about, will leave, will lose that tax revenue, and therefore it negates everything you just said because we lose that revenue.
I don't worry about that because the data doesn't back that up. I'm a person that believes in numbers and data, and
Anecdotal evidence doesn't move you.
It doesn't scare me. I'm not scared by the boogeyman of things that can't be proven. I believe in science and math, and I think that most people do too.
Yeah.
You know, the data doesn't show that actually is what happened. I'm not buying it, and I don't think our elected officials should either.
How about this? Airbnb. What were 20 seconds? What was the vote that mattered in Jersey City on Airbnb? Why is Steve Fulop, the mayor, talking about it? What the heck does it have to do with housing?
It has everything to do with housing because Airbnb was operating in the city of Jersey City without really any regulations. And when the city adopted what seemed to be a fair, sensible ordinance that would regulate how Airbnb could control a large portion of the rental market, which we talked about earlier being very small and not nearly enough, and that supply and demand problem really drives the issue of not having affordable rents, and because there aren't enough places.
2 seconds, go ahead.
Sure. So that ordinance was really a litmus test for whether Airbnb was going to be able to take more than its fair share of the marketplace.
This is going to be an ongoing issue.
It probably is going to be an ongoing issue, but I think the people in Jersey City spoke, and they stood up for the rest of New Jersey.
Staci Berger will be back talking about that and other things on State of Affairs. I want to thank you, my friend.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well done.
Thanks.
Stay right there. I'm Steve Adubato. This has been State of Affairs. We'll catch you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, Berkeley College, Valley Bank, ADP, the Northward Center, the Turl Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, New Jersey Resources, and by Delta Dental of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by NJ Advance Media and by Insider NJ.
Hi, I'm Dennis Wilson, President and CEO of Delta Dental of New Jersey. You probably know that visiting your dentist and daily at-home care are necessary for maintaining good oral health. What you might not know is that your oral health is connected to your overall health. Oral health may impact conditions like diabetes, blood disorders, and heart disease. Regular cleanings and checkups allow your dentist to assess your risk and keep you and your smile healthy.